Perfect. So really, I thought that the best way to start this conversation is to tell you a little bit why do venture capitalists exist and what is our role. So really, venture capital is a type of funding and is critical to fund early stage innovation, given the risk profile of these startups, right? So biotechs, what do they have? They have ideas, they have teams, they have science. And what investors have, so we have money, networks, experience, and governance. And typically these early stage ventures are very risky. So pharma players and large biotechs are not quite there ready to really intake these companies or these projects internally. Typically, we invest in breakthrough, very high risk, disrupting science, not validated, where targets are not yet validated. So it's difficult for pharma or large biotechs really to be able to cover all the exciting targets and all the exciting biology and chemistry that is out there. So VCs, venture capitalists, we take a bet and we invest in these companies. We are very hands-on, trying to help these companies as much as possible in order to bring successful therapies then later on to patients, and then really have a financial return on the one hand and also a better health. So what are the key ingredients of a successful venture? Really an idea. So strong science, good science, early validation. We are happy to go with the risk, and we're happy to have gaps in the data package, but really robust science, and products or approaches that really address a clear unmet medical need. We are there for differentiated technologies. We don't invest in me-too approaches. Really, the goal is to go for targets, approaches that are addressing an unmet medical need, in which there are either no products in the market or no advanced products in development for that particular indication. In terms of team, building a business is really hard, right? So these companies are very small. And the number of FTEs are limited, so really we bet on successful and high working teams. VCs are typically very engaged on these companies, and we try to complement with our network any gaps that these teams may have. And also we provide money with a clear fundraising strategy. So the goal is really to invest up to a point in which there is a meaningful value inflection point, and then continue funding if needed, if there is not a partnership or exit, an IPO for those companies. There are different funding sources, and venture capital is the largest. So there's friends and families, there's business angels, there are charities and foundations, which this brings non-dilutive funding and very attractive source of funding for our portfolio companies. There's also funding provided by incubators, by public grants, and institutional investors. But really, VCs are the largest source of private capital for early stage companies. And why is that? It's interesting. I mean, I'd like to show you some statistics on why we think this is the case. This is a little bit outdated. The data goes to 2018, but I think it's a good way of illustrating that if we look at the drug approvals drug approvals from 2009 to 2018, and the originator of those,
Dr. Crespo-Martin,
yes?
I have a question. Are
Sure.
you showing the same slide all the time, or is it there is difficulty that the slide is not turning over?
No, I have been moving slides. That didn't.
No, you are. We've been seeing only one slide so far.
Oh, really? So, oh,
yeah.
Okay. So that shouldn't be like that. Let me try again. No,
yeah. If anything happens, then we can share the slide from here. But why don't you try first?
Yeah, that's strange because I've been moving the slides. Let's try again. Okay, is it moving now?
No, it's not. Have you moved it? Have you turned it
I have
over?
moved it. Yes.
Oh, it's not working. So, Christine,
Okay,
can we try to do it from this side? Oh, now it's moving. Yes, yes.
Okay, so I think the problem is when I go to full mode. Okay. And when I go to full screen, that it doesn't move.
Now it's moving. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
apologies for that. Yep,
Okay,
I don't
okay.
know, something with my Zoom. Right,
Okay.
so let me just recap a little bit. So we were talking about what a biotech company have, so ideas, team science, what we bring, money, network, experience, and governance, and why do we do that in order to provide for a better health and having a financial return out of these investments. This is a little bit a different way of explaining like that we invest in ideas, team, and money, and the different source of funding. Right, and venture capital and VC is the largest source of private capital. And what I was going through now is a little bit of statistics, right? If we look at this data collected by HVM from 2009 to 2018, and we look at the drug approvals by size and drug originator, we see in dark green here that the smaller biopharma companies provide for the largest drug approvals, right? And all these smaller biopharma companies receive VC funding. So really, VC is a key element to fund the next wave of therapeutics that are going to go into the market. And if we look at the trend from 2009 to 2018, there's been a little bit of a up and down here, but then from 2016 really to 2018, the largest number of drug approvals account from have as originator smaller biopharma companies. And this is the type of companies that we fund. In terms of our mandate and our role at Sanofi Ventures, so we are strategic, so it means that we focus on those therapeutic areas that are of strategic interest to Sanofi, but are too early stage, too risky for an R&D collaboration, a BD or an M&A, and we try to bridge the gap. And we invest in transformative early stage therapeutics, and also we do digital health investments. I'm focused exclusively on therapeutics, but we have a small team based in Boston that they also do digital health investments. As a nutshell, we are an evergreen fund that invest in those therapeutic areas that are of strategic interest to Sanofi. We have offices in both Paris and Boston, and we are a small team of seven investors, driven by strategic returns to Sanofi, right? So we are not there only for the financial return, but really for the strategic return to Sanofi. And then we have access to high quality deal flow from a wide network of independent VC firms and also from our own investment. In terms of mandate, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of the type of size and investments that we do. So we are able to invest up to 15 million per round and up to 30 per company over the lifetime of our investment, but we can adjust these figures. We can go higher, we can go lower. This is just a rough estimate of what we typically invest. And we are very active at the board level. We believe that we can only help companies if we have information rights and that we are at the company, and we are able to really leverage all the expertise and knowledge that that Sanofi has internally, right? So it's not only through our own internal expertise, but also the expertise of the entire Sanofi. We are able to bring the view of pharma from very early on and translate that into our portfolio companies. Where do we typically invest in? So if we look at the flow of the drug discovery, we are able to engage very early on. We do company creation. We've done a couple this year in the US. We did also a couple in the US last year. So we can do company creation and invest very early on when companies are still at a very early stage in science and discovery, from preclinical stages, both exploratory preclinical to GLP tox, and also to early stage clinical trials. So this is the framework, or this is the stages that we typically get into, and then we always continue supporting our portfolio companies as they evolve and as they go forward, right? And why we do that? Because, as I said, many opportunities are strategic to Sanofi, but too early, too risky to engage. Maybe in a target that is not yet validated, maybe with a modality that is still not validated, maybe in an area that Sanofi wants to get into, but it's still too early, too risky to fund internally. So this is another way of displaying the value chain of drug discovery and where we typically invest, right? From most of our portfolio companies, I would say they are at the clinical stage at the moment that we invest in. But I would like to highlight one investment that we did last year in a vaccine play in Denmark that really we invested to fund phase 2 trials. And why did we do that? Because vaccines are difficult to syndicate, they are challenging, they are not for everyone. There's a limited potential acquirers, Sanofi being one of them. And that was an indication that it's still too risky, not yet clear, where there is nothing in the market, is Group B strep. And it's a maternal vaccine, right? So you see that the number of risks keeps adding here, right? Limited acquirers, vaccines and not many players, maternal vaccines, prophylactic. So in that case, for example, we invested, let's say, later stage. So we are not dogmatic in terms of a stage of development in which we first get into these companies, but it's about the level of risk. And what do we bring? So that's another way of showing that what we want really is to build relationships with companies, to have a seat at the table, to support those companies, to be very active at the board level, and to create value not only for future pipeline opportunities for Sanofi, but also if it's not for Sanofi, then it might be for another player. It would be unrealistic to think that Sanofi would acquire or partner with all our investments. And I'll show you in a minute the number of investments that we have in our portfolio, right? So really we invest to provide better health, ideally for in the hands of Sanofi later on, but if not, for other potential pharma players. What does it mean working together with us? So we take a very collaborative and practical approach. So we bring the view of pharma from very early on. We can access internal expertise from Sanofi, from any department, really, preclinical, regulatory, CMC, clinical. If there are questions, if we can help our portfolio companies in any of these aspects, we do. We have board participation. We keep monitoring milestones. We do financial monitoring based, joining audit committees, or joining or just helping in the financial monitoring. We help in HR matters. These are very small biotech companies, so we really need to be very engaged and really support these teams. We always participate in the next financing rounds, also in IPOs. So really, we save a budget from our fund to really help supporting these companies going forward. We expand the investor base, and then really we explore BD and licensing opportunities, and we prepare those companies for an exit. In terms of our core areas of expertise, there's a number, right? So we focus on rare genetic diseases and blood disorders. This is heritage from Jeonju, and here we have a number of portfolio companies in that space. We are also growing strong in oncology and immunology, as well as neurology. And the beauty is that really within these three buckets, we are agnostic completely in terms of modality. So we do small molecules, we do biologics, we do ADCs, we do gene and cell therapy. And the beauty is that Sanofi has expertise in all these areas, right? So we are able to provide also support and help in all these areas. And as I was mentioned earlier with the example of Minervax, we also do investments in vaccines. In terms of digital health, that's not my focus. I focus exclusively on therapeutics, but this is an idea of the areas that we focus on. So from customer engagement to digital clinical trials, digital research, digital therapeutic, we have a number, real world evidence. We also have a number of portfolio companies in that space, and virtual healthcare. What's our investment criteria and process? So really strategic alignment, we lead rounds and we co-lead investments. And there's a number of companies that we have co-led recently this year. Very active role in terms of at the board and also when drafting shareholders agreement. And we really look for a differentiated solution. So our key question is, what's different about this technology? What's different about this approach that would make a difference if the data, the biology would then translate? And the other points I think we've covered in terms of how important people is, and the other metrics. These are identical for any other VC, right? I mean, IP needs to be there. We really work based on tranche deals, identifying milestones, and then valuation needs to make sense. I'd like to finish a little bit my presentation with a view of our portfolio. So here in these three buckets, you see the active portfolio, both in therapeutics and in digital, and then a number of investments. We got started less than 10 years ago, and I think it's a nice way of showing the number of companies that we have, how active we've been, not only investing, but also exiting these investments. And there's a number that have had strategic relationships with Sanofi. I can highlight a number. So I like to highlight, for example, Kymera. Kymera is a US company focused on the protein degradation space. At the moment when we invested, Sanofi did not have an interest in the protein degradation, and two years later, Sanofi did a deal for one of the programs, IRAK4, with a significant milestone and then total deal size value of over $1 billion. So I think this is really why we exist, right? I mean, protein degradation was at the time not a very, it wasn't yet validated. It was perceived at a very high risk area. And that's when we bridged the gap between our investment and then the deal with Sanofi. And there's a number of other deals in which we had struck partnerships with Sanofi. The bucket here in the active portfolio, it has a number from vaccines, Minervax, for example, CNS. We have number. We have Nothera, for example, in the CNS space, and there's we have Muna as well. Like Icosavax is also in the vaccine space, IPO recently. Drug delivery, I2O therapeutics. So really, it's a very diverse portfolio in which we tried really to help in any of these therapeutic areas. That's our team. So 7 professionals, Camille and I, and Valérie based in Paris, and the rest of the team, Jason, Meg, Chris, and Jean based in Boston. The team is led by Jason, who is the managing director of the fund. And really, we have a global outreach. For the moment, we have only invested in Europe and in the US, but really trying to expand into Asia. We don't have operations yet, but really would be delighted to be able to engage in and expand into Asia as well.